What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's a very special review from the Countdown City Geeks. My name is Ted, aka Steady, and joining me on this review of A24's The Iron Claw from the Legacy of Nerd, Daniel.
What's up, Ted? How you doing?
Fantastic. You and I just got out of The Iron Claw, which, if people do not know, is a movie about a very popular Texas wrestling family, the Von Erichs. And just speaking about my own experience, they were around at like the peak of their popularity, like right before I got into wrestling. I got into wrestling like the very late '80s, the early '90s, and even when things weren't on television at the time, I would like go to my VHS store. Yes, folks, we had VHS rental stores back then, and I would like go get the VHS tapes of like pay-per-views that I missed growing up. So, oh man, the Von Erichs from Texas, and wrestling in Texas was like almost as big as football. Like it is a Texas pastime. We have a very long history with it in Texas, and so this movie was talking all about the Von Erichs, which it's a story about all the tragedies that they faced and endured. If you know anything about the family, it is a heavy subject matter. So let's talk about just our general thoughts. Getting out of the movie. Daniel, your general overview, sir. What are you feeling right now? What are you going through?
So my initial thoughts was that it was a very emotional roller coaster movie. We knowing the tragedy of the Von Erichs and the curse of the Von Erichs, which you can call it, is what the movie is centered around. And seeing these characters, or not these characters, but these actors portray these real life people that were really going through some really heavy things and really real life situations like depression and suicidal thoughts and mental illness and in some ways, emotional abuse as well. It really brings out a lot of. You can't help but feel for watching, these actors who are playing these real life people, and just like, wow, like these people went through these things, and coming right out of the bat, looking at it as a cinematic movie and the performances, the hype is real. Zac Efron is amazing in this movie. He has ascended to a new level of acting, which, I mean, you watch movies with Zac Efron in it and you can't help but see like that's Zac Efron. This was not that case. I was seeing Kevin Von Erich on screen. I was not seeing Zac Efron. So it was definitely um you hear a lot of people talking about possible Oscar nominations or possible just award nominations, and going into that, you're skeptical, and I can see it now. And not only that, but the cast around him as well, because this movie does take a Kevin Von Erich point of view. So everyone else, supporting cast, I can't think of the actor right off name, but the guy that plays Fritz Von Erich, the patriarch of the family, um, great performance as well. But another actor that really stood out for me, and probably because I've watched him for so long, is Jeremy Allen White, who a lot of you guys know as Lip from Shameless,
Yeah.
or Chef from The Bear. So he obviously was playing a very different person here in this movie. It's weird because I want to say characters, but they're not characters because this is based on real life people.
Yeah.
So, and seeing the things that Carrie Von Erich was going through was hard to watch as well. So coming out of this movie, really impressed with the performances that I saw from these actors, and just getting a better idea of what the curse of the Von Erich really entails, and how these people were dealing with these things happening so quickly one after the other during that time.
Yeah. If I had to sum up this entire film in one word, my word is powerful. It is a powerful movie, and the narrative, the storytelling by director and writer Sean Durkin, I feel was just magnificent. It is treated with such a thoughtful and sensitive eye throughout this movie. This is honestly a an incredibly cinematic film for being such a very contained story about this family. But when necessary, you feel the intensity of like the matches that we saw. You feel the workouts, the blood, the sweat, and the tears that they all kind of went through. The aggression, it's all there, and you feel it. Honestly, I told this to a few people when we walked out. Had like a small level of anxiety watching this film because I know a little bit about this story. I knew what was gonna happen to most of the individuals in this movie, and so that might be most of it. But you had the emotion was all there, and you felt it in the
Yeah.
audience. It was heavy. It was thick. The tension was thick while watching this movie, and that's a great film when you can, really pull that off throughout. And it's not a horror or a thriller movie. It's not, this big bold story. It's this really self-contained tale about this family and the tragedies they suffered. Zac Efron, like you mentioned, absolutely incredible. His physical stature is what right off the bat just you see it and you're just in awe of like how he transformed his body for this role, and you cannot tell them apart based on the way they looked physically. Like he really ran with this and
Yeah.
transformed himself. And shout out to Jeremy Allen White. I've absolutely loved him since I've seen Shameless since it first came out. And so it's weird. I'm gonna say this. It sounds weird, but we watched Jeremy Allen grow up on Shameless, and I've been waiting. I have been waiting for the day that he was just going to sort of take Hollywood and the entire world by storm, because he's always had this high level of acting skill and prowess and charisma. I was just waiting for him to sort of break out, and The Bear really did that, and this one is going to elevate him to even
Yes.
greater heights. So
I
it was
agree.
great seeing him.
It's really hard to classify this as a wrestling movie because I think for a lot of people from the outside are going to say, "Oh, that's a wrestling like the wrestling movie, right?" And yes, wrestling is a big part of this movie, but it's not. It's intertwined so well into how they tell the story of the Von Erichs that you almost like it's a part, it's a character in itself because it's so important as well. But if anyone looking from the outside saying like, "Oh, that's just a wrestling," like this is not Ready to Rumble.
Hmm.
This is not any other sort of wrestling movie in the past. If you're going to compare it to anything, you can sort of compare it to The Wrestler
Yeah,
because you get that movie which was very like a wrestler behind the scenes and what his real life is like, and this is sort of that too. But obviously, the Von Erichs are a much more tragic story, a much more dysfunctional family. I don't want to say dysfunctional, but a much different family than most, right? So it is one thing to look at it from the outside. For Texas, one thing about Texas is you were talking earlier how when you started watching wrestling, you started to learn about the Von Erichs. When I started watching wrestling, my dad was like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch the Von Erichs," and he would tell me about the Von Erichs about them. And but what one thing that would always come up is the tragedies around the family as well. So it's sort of unavoidable thing. This is not a movie of any sort of like redemption movie. This isn't. This is what happened, and this is how they dealt with these things. And it's not always. It's not. It's real life, guys. So it's not always going to be like the happy ending that you want, right? There was loss in this movie. There was mental health issues, emotional abuse. These guys torturing their bodies, to do what they are doing. It tells a very, very real story.
absolutely. It's the raw truth of what they went through, and I have a great appreciation for wrestlers and both actors that portrayed wrestlers on screen, because I have taken bumps. I have done a very small bit of training in a ring. I've run ropes before.
Oh.
I completely understand what it feels like, and I'm telling you, like, it hurts. Everything hurts. There's no spoilers, but there's a scene where Zach is just running ropes, and he's got so much passion and aggression that you see him running ropes, and it's beautifully shot for just somebody running the ropes in a ring. But every time he hit those ropes, I'm like, I felt it. I felt it right on the back of my ribs. I'm just like, I felt it. I remember what that feels like. The bumps they took.
There's
I'm
one bump in particular at the beginning of the movie, and you feel it with the person, and you're just like, oh my god, like
Oh yeah. I mean,
that.
even the ones that they take in the ring, like each one of those, if you're not a trained wrestler for years or just a long period of time, you feel those. It takes a while to sort of get over those feelings of taking those bumps. So I fully appreciate everything they did and they went through making this film. Shout out to Chavo Guerrero, who was their wrestling coach. Chavo is fantastic. He's a legend. Comes from a family of legends, and he helped train these guys. And so you can see it on the screen how serious they took not only their roles but the art of professional wrestling. They did an
Agreed.
incredible job, and it shows. It shows on the screen just like how serious they took the wrestling aspect of this movie. So yeah, fantastic. It like you mentioned though, it does surpass what you would consider just a wrestling movie, but it is a serious drama and just an incredibly well directed, well shot, well acted movie.
Agreed. And you never there doesn't feel like a wasted moment in the movie. You are completely entwined in the movie the entire time, so it's very well paced as well.
Well paced. Audience is completely invested in what's happening. So yeah, we really appreciated just everything. And now it's time for our Geekcast rating. Rating is on a scale of 1 to 5. One being I don't know what the worst wrestling movie might be. I don't want to say Ready to Rumble, but
Ready to rumble, probably.
there's some things I liked about it, and 5 could be the wrestler. I don't really. Yeah, let's just go with that.
Yeah.
If I'm measuring this movie, I got to give it no less than a 4.5 out of 5. Just well acted, well performed. It's shot beautifully, and you feel every emotion and the intensity and just throughout this film. Even the score at times, I was just thinking to myself like, "Wow, this is
Yeah.
a beautiful score." So 4.5 for me on the Iron Claw. How about you?
I'll go with 4.5 also. The movie stands firm. It's going to get a lot of attention with award season coming up right now. Obviously, they timed this movie releasing it at the end of the window, so everything's going to be start collecting votes here like in a month or so. So that's going to be fresh on everybody's mind. I feel like we're going to hear a lot about. I'm expecting Zac Efron to get some sort of recognition or at least be close to getting a nomination, if not getting a nomination. I do see it maybe one or two of them with Jeremy Allen White or the man that played I want to say his actor's name, but the one that played Fritz Von Erich, I can see supporting actor nods for them as well. The only issue I kind of run into this movie is while the main cast their performances are amazing and very very good, some of the like actors around the other areas of the movie not so on par with everything else that is going on. There's a callback, well, not a callback, but there's an interpretation of a very famous wrestler, and it's not good. Like it's you're like, are they even portraying the right wrestler? So yeah, there's some little issues around it, but other than that, like I said, the movie is well paced. The movie builds upon itself very well. The main cast is performances just heartbreaking, emotional performances. And I very much expect this to be in a lot of conversations for award season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know which wrestler you're talking about, you're referring to. There are some other ones that they show or they try and depict. And to be fair, there's just nobody like the
Yeah,
individual we're thinking about. There's only one of those guys in the history of the world, and so
it just felt like they didn't even
asking
try.
asking
Like,
someone to play one of these wrestling legends with the biggest persona of all time, the biggest personality, is near impossible. Like nobody could have done it. Daniel Day Lewis could not have done a decent job. You might as well have just left that individual to play himself in the movie. Um, yeah,
he would have done it. He totally
actually,
would have done
and look for a few cameos. There's a few wrestlers who play cameos as this older gentleman, and not a spoiler, but I looked it up. MJF is actually an executive producer on this film,
it. Okay,
so
that's good.
yeah, put his money where his mouth is, and he had respect for this movie, and he wanted to make sure it was a success, and I think that's why he kind of got involved with it. So I'll look more about that to kind of see what his thoughts were. But I was surprised to see that he was a executive producer on the film.
One actress that may sneak into some conversations as well as Lily James.
She's
That
great.
was an amazing performance in this one as well. Complements every part. She plays the wife of Kevin Von Erich. She complements every scene with him. It feels so natural. So, everyone's going to talk about obviously all the brothers and the family, but Lily James portraying her part as well, probably be in conversations as well.
100%. She's fantastic. We want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts about the Iron Claw? Let us know in the comments below. And also, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube as well as social media because we still have more movie advanced screening passes to give away. Stay tuned right here. For the Countdown to the Geeks, my name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me from the Legacy of Nerd, Daniel.
Thank you guys. Go see the movie. It's worth it.
Absolutely. And happy holidays.